Righty then, the Shelter FootyCast is here. This is the Round 10 review. I'm going to stuff that up multiple times. Myself, Will Schofield. Mark Redding's with you. G'day, Skeet. How are you?
I'm great, Scully. A bit disappointed, I have to say. I rocked up today. He said, bring your A-game. Looked the part. I've worn the slacks, the Julius Marlows, and you're basically dressed like you got out of bed with some Birkenstocks just to go on the feet.
Well, that may or may not be true, Skeet. I may or may not have just got out of bed. It's good to see. I mean, would you rather us be in a blue suit, white shirt, clean cut?
We're like the odd couple, isn't it? It's perfect this morning. I have to say, the new podcast, Shelter, of course, getting right behind us here, comes on the same day, not coincidentally, that we've got a new Prime Minister sworn in. So a couple of major moments for Australia happening before our eyes today.
Who is the new Prime Minister? What's his name?
Just Elbow.
Okay, Elbow. Very good. Elbow. Shelter Brewing Co. They are bringing you this podcast, a preview on Thursdays. This one, a review on Mondays. We're going to get through the round. It's going to be WA focused. Going to have a look around West Coast, a look around the Dockers. Hopefully one of them goes okay. I don't want to come in here and have to sink my sorrows on a Shelter, although that would be beautiful to do. I think we need a bit of positivity, right?
We need one club, and it's not going to be the Eagles this year, as we know, given what the results are showing us. We need the Dockers to start finding some form. So we'll go in depth as to what is going wrong, particularly when the heavens open for Fremantle during the course of the show, because you're right, if both teams go down the gurgler, a number of Shelter cans starts to diminish by about August.
If you are just listening to us, you can find us on YouTube as well. This is a fully filmed podcast, so you can find us on YouTube. Just find us over on the BackChat YouTube page. Just Google that. You'll find us there for the Shelter FootyCast. You can find us on socials. We've got our own social network on Instagram at Shelter FootyCast. Shelter, born and brewed in Busso. Have you been down there? Have you been down to the pier down there, the jetty?
Absolutely. It's what a great spot it is. I mean, the location is outstanding, and the venue itself, having been there for a bite to eat and, of course, a Shelter, it is a must-visit spot. If you're flying in even from Melbourne out of Busselton, you can jump on a little cab or you can almost walk to the Shelter Brewery, which is the best part of Busselton now.
You've never turned down a beer in your entire life, have you?
No, but I'm bit partial to Shelter, though. I'm not a beer expert like you, but I certainly would say that that's one of the better drops I've had.
Okay, very good. Shelter FootyCast. We're going to be with you Mondays, Thursdays for a full wrap. So let's get into it. The big moment of the weekend for WA teams. What's it for Freo? What's the big talking point out of the game yesterday?
Well, I think I'm a horse racing man, and in horse racing parlance, there are some horses you wouldn't back if it starts to rain. They're fine trackers. They like the firm footing. The Fremantle Dockers have become exactly that in footy terms. The past 2 weeks, Fremantle have failed to deliver when the rain has come.
You called the game yesterday. What did you see? Did Fremantle play badly? Was it Collingwood?
Oh, Collingwood were terrific. They adjusted to the conditions superbly, and they played wet weather footy. They went for territory. They kept it simple. Fremantle, in my mind, and I think Justin Longmuir would agree with this, they tried to play dry weather footy, even though it was torrential in the first quarter, and that meant they were caught in between two styles that they weren't quite sure which way to travel, and they don't play a lot of wet weather footy, Fremantle, being WA based.
So that's the big issue out of the weekend for Fremantle. Can they win games in the wet? We're going to get into a full breakdown of the Freo-Collingwood matchup a little bit later on, but can they win games in the wet? From my experience, Western Australian teams struggle in the wet, and the reason is it's not what you're used to. It's something you don't see over summer, over pre-season. And now Melbourne teams might not either. But it's traditional. West Coast and Freo don't go well in the wet.
Yeah, but we're talking about a winter sport, Scully. This is not like we're just asking you to go out and play in Darwin, for instance, in the humidity or North Queensland in the middle of February. It astounds me that the WA teams can use that as an out.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to have to because what we've seen over the last 2 weeks, Gold Coast, Fremantle couldn't score. They had about 30 more inside 50s last week, Fremantle. And then this week, Collingwood's pressure looked good. And look, they scored a little bit, but it looked like they couldn't execute their skills well in the wet. So I don't know how you fix it. West Coast used to get detergent out and put it in eskies, put the balls through the detergent, and you'd train at the start of training with detergent on the footy.
So you did that with Adam Simpson?
Yeah, that's correct. So I don't know if Justin Longmuir knows about that, but I'm sure he'll be listening to the Shelter FootyCast and he'll get that done. What about West Coast? The big issue for them out of the weekend, it's their captain, I think.
Yeah, it has to be the fitness, the health, and the long-term viability of Luke Shuey. As much as of a great servant he has been and is, his body simply is failing him too regularly. Now, this isn't a soft tissue injury. We're told by Adam Simpson it's a back complaint, but whether there's a hamstring relation to that, I'm not too sure. But you know Luke Shuey pretty well.
Yeah.
What would be going through his mind at the moment, knowing he cannot get any continuity into his body?
Oh, look, he'd be incredibly disappointed. He's the ultimate competitor, first and foremost, Luke Shuey, and that's why he's the captain. And it's... Look, he won't mind me saying this. He's not the sort of captain that I guess you'd imagine a Luke Hodge or a Michael Voss would be, stand up in front of the group and really inspire your teammates by his voice. He's the sort of guy that leads by his actions. And right now, he can't get on the field. They bring him back, whether it's too early or not, and he goes down again. He gets subbed out. Brady Hoff comes back into the team and plays the last quarter. Is it just precautionary? Is it another injury? I mean, another injury, you'd never call the end to anyone's career at all, but it's not going well, is it?
Are you confident in your mind, in brief, that he will play next year because of his health? That's it, the fitness levels, which he just can't get back to what we saw going back 5 or 6 years.
I mean, there was lots of noise made about Oscar Allen getting wrapped up early, putting cotton wool. Maybe you look to do that with your captain, with Luke Shuey. That's not tanking. That's just the situation West Coasts are in. They're not going to make finals. Can we make that clear on the Shelter FootyCast? Are they going to play finals?
There's the understatement of the 2022 season. They are not making finals. Are they going to make 5 or 6 wins for the year?
So
that's the question.
If they've got an injured captain, why don't you just finish that up, wrap it up?
Well, he's a competitor. He's an athlete. He wants to play, doesn't he? That's from his point of view, but from the club who will have the overriding decision, I would suggest you're probably right.
There we go. Okay, that's the big issues out of WA football, West Coast and Fremantle on the Shelter FootyCast. That's West Coast and Freo, the big issues. But what about each game? Let's get inside the West Coast game to start with. They play GWS. Starting on GWS, they've got a new coach, Mark McVeigh. Leon Cameron gets sacked during the week effectively. He has his farewell game, which I found interesting to begin with, to be honest. You don't see that a lot. And he's been sacked. He hasn't just stepped away because he feels like it's the right thing to do. Look, they handled it well as a footy club, GWS, but there's a new coach in place. GWS brought some new positional changes. So they beat West Coast by 52 points. It turns West Coast into 1-9 after 10 rounds, 6 losses in a row. They're going poorly, West Coast. That's not new. But what GWS did was they bought a new game plan with a new coach. They tried players in different positions. So they play Cornelio through the midfield. He has over 30 touches playing as a pure midfielder. Harry Himmelberg, their leading goal kicker of the season, plays at full back. I tell you what, putting him forward into the back line, he'd be spewing up. But he played really well. And then you see guys like Ward play into the back line, and Toby Green comes through the midfield a lot. So they threw something different at West Coast, and they just couldn't handle it in the first half. They were a little starstruck, to be honest, West Coast. They kicked 0 goals. GWS kicked 3 goals in the first 4 minutes. Toby Green kicked the first 2 goals in the match. And for a team that wants to come out and show passion and determination and contested footy because they've been lacking it in the last 5 rounds, West Coast's start to the game was really poor. And when that happens, and you would have seen it in your time, Skeet, a team that's under the pump, 5 losses in a row, they would have been trying to come out and do it, but they weren't able to. They looked like on the back foot, which is the complete opposite of what they would have wanted to look like.
Yeah, and you look at the numbers at the end of the day. I mean, they kicked 21 goals, the Giants. And defensively, and you've spent half your life trying to work out how to stop opposition sides. And the Eagles, they kicked 86 points for the day, which is probably their best haul all season or close to it from off the top of my head.
They scored.
Yeah, they scored.
Yeah.
But they leaked at the other end.
Yeah.
So you're right. The first half was poor. The second half, you look at the numbers, and what was it? 7 goals to the Giants and 8 to West Coast. So
that's a positive.
That's a positive. Mind you, the Giants aren't a team that are going to be threatening this year either.
No, they're not. And I mean, that's, I guess, the issue for West Coast. They've lost to North Melbourne. They've lost to GWS. They're losing against sides that, if they are going to win and scrape themselves off the bottom of the ladder, these are the sort of teams they have to do it against. They were incredibly efficient, GWS. They kicked 14 goals in that first half. So game game was done and dusted. 14 goals against you at halftime.
You're gone.
It's all over. And for a team that's going poorly, it's even more all over. You can't come back from that. So they were efficient going inside 50. GWS won the contested ball as well. West Coast just couldn't get their hands on it. If you looked at the breakdown, top 10 disposals of the game, 8 were GWS. West Coast had 3 players above 20 touches. You're not going to be able to do it if you can't get supply from the midfield, which has been an issue for West Coast throughout the season. You've seen a lot of them play this year.
Yeah, and look, I'll ask you this question now. If we were to stop the clock in terms of the John Worsfold medal, and Tim Kelly's copped a lot of criticism in recent times, the trade which has been brought up time and time again given the predicament of the Eagles list, I'd like to know who you think who would be on top of the John Worsfold medal, because you think Tim Kelly has played some good matches. He was good yesterday. I mean, Jack Redden's been steady, but they've had so many players not out there.
Patrick Naish has been the only player that I think he was Medi-sub 1 week. I think he's played every game.
The only consistent.
Yeah, and that's Patrick Naish, who was added as an SSP player at the start of the year, wasn't on the list in March. So, I mean, you've never seen a season like that from any team. And people are starting to throw out, is this the worst season that any team's ever had? And that's in line with
Fitzroy.
Yeah, Fitzroy, Gold Coast, GWS. I mean, the numbers they're putting out that's putting them in those sort of realms.
But the problem is, you look at the personnel, the talent. If you put them on paper, that's not a Fitzroy. That's not a GWS when they've started out as a club, nor the Gold Coast Suns. I can't work out why they have fallen off the cliff so dramatically.
I think there's you need to be able to say enough for consistency and actually getting players out there. It's not excuses for West Coast, because it is what it is, and they're going poorly, and that's just how it goes. But when you don't get players on the park at the same time, playing with the same players, it doesn't matter how experienced you are. Not only are you lacking fitness and match fitness, not just running laps fitness, but being able to go each way when you turn the ball over, being able to react quickly, and then knowing each other and what you're going to do. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, you still need to play together. So, look, for them to improve going forward, they need to get players on the park and they need to play together for a longer period of time. I think that's where the fall away has happened. They didn't play well last year either. People are forgetting they didn't make finals last year,
and they fell away badly.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's continued on. It hasn't been this. They're going to be a top 4 side and they're now bottom of the ladder. Although they'd be incredibly disappointed where they're at. That's West Coast. Wrap it up. I think they've got to look to get better, potentially through the midfield. They've got to get their hands on the ball, and that helps, but it's going to be a long road. Now, the Fremantle Dockers, they go down as well, defeated by Collingwood by 36 points. You were at that game. You commentated the game. What happened?
Well, quite simply, I think it was 2 goals, 2 apiece at quarter time. Fremantle dominated possession. They dominated territory in the opening quarter, but what they didn't do was adjust correctly to the wet weather, which Collingwood did. There were a couple of free kicks awarded for deliberate out of bounds, which Collingwood were penalised for, and Craig McRae was asked afterwards about it, and he was a bit confused. He said, look, at quarter time I told the boys, just try and be more attacking when it comes to ball in hand, be more direct. Wet weather footy. It stopped raining during the course of the day, but it was still pretty heavy underfoot. So Collingwood adjusted better, and there was one occasion I think Fremantle tried to switch the play through the middle of the ground, which on a dry day would work superbly.
That's how they play. That's
exactly.
How they play, right?
But it wasn't a day to be trying to fine-tune and finesse your way through Optus Stadium. So they played wet weather footy better than Fremantle, and the Dockers had a crack, but they just... And you know what? The most telling thing for me at the end of the day was the press conference given by Justin Longmuir. And he mentioned about players getting ahead of themselves. Not just a bit ahead of themselves, a fair bit ahead of themselves. So does that mean they were becoming big heads about where they were on the ladder? They were reading the press, looking at... Were they drinking their own bathwater, as they say, Scully?
Flag mantle. I mean, we've rolled it out a little bit over at BackChat, but...
That's a bit over the top.
Tongue firmly in cheek. I mean, that they won 5 games in a row, and amongst that was it? Yeah, sorry, and one of those games was Geelong in Geelong. So you've got to take them seriously. But Geelong's probably not the side we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, and Fremantle's ability to play each way has been built on their ball movement, both from their back line and then their midfield dominance. Now, Collingwood brought a lot of pressure yesterday. From what I saw, their pressure was outstanding.
It was brilliant. And they had also had the clean hands. Guys like De Goey able to use it. Well, we know Pendlebury, what he brings to the table. But yeah, they were clean. And their small forward line, it really worked well. Being able to mix it up. And Elliott was terrific. So they had all the ingredients there. Down back. And Darcy Moore's copped some grief over the last
Hasn't he?
month.
Yeah.
Given he's signed a big contract with Collingwood. And as soon as that happens, invariably the numbers go south.
Is that fair? Is that fair? Like, I understand he hasn't, it's not his fault he signed a big contract. I know more pressure comes with it, but he hasn't said it's Collingwood's fault. That's not his fault.
But the bottom line is, it just seems, how regularly do you see a player sign a long-term deal and then immediately the numbers slip away?
Oh, yeah. It's pressure.
But he was terrific yesterday. Let me
he?
put that on the table. He was outstanding. Matt Tabiter, he could have been a different postcode at times. He just didn't look like it, Matt, in those conditions. And against one of the premier defenders in the competition. So, look, Fremantle had some hard... Well, look, Will Brodie's probably the pickup of the season in terms of Fremantle, easily.
36 touches he had.
I look at...
And a goal.
Over the pre-season, I thought Will Brodie coming to the Fremantle from the Suns. I went, yeah, okay, that's not going to add a lot more than a bit of grunt. He's been terrific, and he would be close.
He'd be top 3 in their best and fairest.
Absolutely. He's been an outstanding pickup for Fremantle, but he couldn't do it by himself. Andy Brayshaw trying hard, but you're right. The goals have dried up, and Fremantle have just got to do some tinkering before a really tough fortnight. Melbourne, MCG, Brisbane back at home.
Oh, boy. I mean, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a wake-up call. I spoke to Justin Longmuir before the game on 6PR, and he spoke about the back line, about the selection issues they've had there. They've got 9 players to play in 7 spots effectively, and they were disappointed with how the back line played last week, but they decided to go with exactly the same back line. The back line was exposed again, I thought, against Collingwood, so they're going to make some changes there. I think they'll move some players around. I think like every time, but Griffin Logue will probably make way. They'll go a bit smaller. They looked a bit stagnant. They didn't make the right decisions going forward there. So it will be interesting what they do at the selection table, given they've got a big 3 weeks coming up.
Absolutely. And look, Hayden Young, I'll talk about defenders. He was one young guy yesterday I was super impressed with. In the air, his foot skills are terrific. Heath Chapman, you persist with these guys every week this season.
It's a blip. I think it's a blip on the radar. I don't think it's a pattern of behaviour yet. But if we go 2 more weeks without a big score from Freo, then panic station starts.
What's the forecast for Melbourne on Saturday or this weekend? Because if it's going to be raining, the bandwagon's starting to empty. You're 1A. You've just dropped back to about 4B at the moment. How long before you're at the back of the bus?
Well, that's usually where the cool kids sit, up the back, but not Fremantle. We need them to heat up a little bit. They're cooling off a bit for our liking. There you go, West Coast and Freo wrapped up nice and quick. You are on the Shelter FootyCast. The rest of the round wrap. 7 games, 2 minutes each game, Skeet. We're going to get through, give you the best of the best. Friday night footy, Carlton defeats Sydney by 15 points. Big win for Carlton.
Oh, what about Charlie? Not
Sir Charles.
Not Sir Charles, and not without his mate Harry Mackay just to help him out. He did it by himself.
Yep.
In fact, there was a touch of Charlie Sheen about the way he went about his business. It was party time at Marvel Stadium.
I'll tell you what, if he starts rocking up like Charlie Sheen used to rock up on 2.5 Men, we'd be in trouble at Carlton. 6 goals. He leads the Coleman on 33, just in front of Lynch. Tom Lynch, I think, at Richmond.
Who was goalless the weekend, by the way.
There you go. Oh, boy. So I think he's the best forward in the comp. I've played on him, Charlie Kerner.
What makes him difficult?
Look, he's missed footy for 2 years, obviously, but as a young guy, his work rate reminds me a bit of Josh Kennedy. Josh Kennedy's real strength was his work rate, his ability to get behind his opponent, to put him in bad spots, and then clearly his contested marking ability. At stages, because he's the only player playing on a very good Sydney backline, they were double teaming him. The McCartan brothers, I mean, that's a proper tag team there, the McCartan brothers, and he was taking contested marks on both of them. So he's your dual threat, work rate, contested side. He'll be an even better player when Mackay comes back into the team. But Carlton are a legitimate chance now. They're top 4 worthy, I think, after beating Sydney.
Yeah, they'll finish there.
8-2.
Yeah, which is, you're playing finals from here, aren't you?
Yep.
It's a question of where you finish. And look, they've passed some really big tests. They were beaten here, of course, by the Fremantle Dockers, but they have been, under Michael Voss, reinvigorated. And you're right, they were challenged on Friday night, particularly late in the game, and they were able to hold firm. So they are a side that will be playing finals, and it's now a question of whether they can get that double chance.
Yep, I agree. Sydney, I don't know where that leaves them. Sydney, they lose to Brisbane, Gold Coast, and now Carlton in the last 4 weeks. So we'll see where that leaves them. Moving on, Geelong defeat Port Adelaide by 35 points in Geelong. So you expect that out of Geelong. It was a weird game. Geelong were down at half-time. Port Adelaide were more efficient. Geelong were poor. They couldn't contain the ball. They couldn't get their mark kick game going. They were inefficient with their disposal. They looked old and grumpy, the Geelong Cats, but they had a big third quarter and probably did what they did at home. But I don't know whether it says more about Geelong or Port Adelaide, to be honest. A win like that in Geelong and a loss for Port Adelaide, because Port Adelaide have been on the roll a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Cam Guthrie, terrific, 38 disposals. Very hard to get a line on Geelong at the moment because their best is still pretty good. They're 6th on the table as we speak. But you don't feel like they're threatening this year, do you? Doesn't feel like they're... Put it this way, Melbourne, Brisbane, even though they lost at the weekend, we'll discuss that yesterday's game, but there's a massive gap, I feel, between some of these teams in the 8 as opposed to Melbourne. And Geelong is one of those clubs that they will play their home ground very well. I think they kicked 7 of the last 8 goals in that match against Port Adelaide. But there's a factor missing now, whether it's they've been to the mountain or they've been thereabouts for so long that they now just don't appear to have that zing about them.
I'll put this one too before we move on. Geelong have been fading comes finals time at last 3 or 4 years. They get to the finals, they're going well, but then they haven't been able to cut it in finals. Maybe they're reverse engineering the season, Skate. Maybe they're just holding everyone back and they're just building nicely to be a bit of an outsider that comes final time.
Well, I like that theory, but I'm yet to be convinced that the Cats are contenders.
I think they sit with Richmond. I think Richmond in the Similar League.
Their day.
Although Richmond are playing well at the moment. Now, Western Bulldogs defeat the Gold Coast Suns, 19 points. Again, I mean, this one, Gold Coast are coming off big wins. They beat Sydney and they beat Freo, and they come up against the Western Bulldogs, who, probably similar to Geelong, have looked to step back where they've been the last couple of years. No
question about that. But what you know about the Western Bulldogs side, if their midfield is humming and the likes of McRae and Smith get the footy and 30-plus disposals, they've got the Bont, who's been a bit sore, I think, but if they've got their midfield firing, and look, they're still not a shadow of the team from last year, are they?
They're not, but their midfield's, on paper, I think the best in the comp. I think it's better than Melbourne's.
Really?
Clearly, Petrarca, Wines, Gawn, big names, but I think Bulldogs go deeper. They're not playing better than Melbourne. Melbourne are playing their roles better and they're performing more consistently. But on paper, Dunkley, Smith, McRae, Treloar, Bontempelli, there's 5 superstars.
They bat deep, don't they?
Yeah. So, look, they haven't been performing how they'd like. Luke Beveridge was a bit prickly in the press conference at the end of the game.
Again?
Wasn't happy with...
It wasn't Tom Morris.
Not Tom Morris. Aaron Norton and the treatment he'd been getting. So they kicked 3 goals in the first half, had been the dominant forward, didn't kick a goal in the second half. Collins went on to him from the Gold Coast Suns, and I don't think Bevo was very happy with the treatment that Aaron was getting. Additionally, Aaron was scragging a bit with Collins and getting penalised. So they were copying the double edge, and Bevo was very prickly. He's not a man you want to come up against in a press conference. You know that as a media man.
Yeah, and he's got the moustache, which always intimidates journalists. I've always been that way. Mick Malthouse was a great example for me as a young bloke growing up in the media. When he looked at you and you could see the bristling of the moustache, and you asked a question that might not have been perhaps your finest moment, and you suddenly start to shrivel up into this little ball in the corner of a press conference when Mick was up and about. And Bevo's got a bit... It's almost like a bikey look about him, isn't it?
He's just, I don't know if it's older, more experienced. He's just getting a little bit more prickly, which I like. I enjoy watching it. Moving on to the next matchup, North Melbourne go down to Melbourne. No surprises there. The surprise was in this game, 47 points they end up losing by. North Melbourne were within a kick about 10 or 12 minutes into the third quarter, which no expert, a couple of experts sitting here by the shelter fridge here, Skeet, but you and I wouldn't have predicted that pre-game. They really took it up to them, which was promising.
It is. I will hasten to say, though, I think Melbourne are going in about second gear in some of these matches, which is a magnificent sign for them. Clayton Oliver, 45 disposals. So Career high. Best that he's done in an AFL match. He was outstanding. And Melbourne, you're right, the margin, North Melbourne walks away, goes, we got within 8 goals of the top team. End of the day.
They just put their foot down a little bit.
They just squeezed when they need to squeeze. And the question going forward for you, Will, and I think I asked you this previously, we think they'll lose a match, Melbourne. We're pretty sure they will.
Yes.
But there won't be many losses. It'll be theirs to lose, in my mind.
Well, what you can take out of this game now, North Melbourne is not to the standard of Melbourne. We know that. They're a cellar dweller, as West Coast are. They challenged them. From what I saw, the pressure gauge would have been right up for North Melbourne. Now clearly they've had a couple of up and down weeks. They've been in the public with perhaps different things have been going on behind closed doors. It looked like they'd been really challenged to take the pressure up to Melbourne. Now I think a team that beats Melbourne will beat them with pressure. And no team is immune to pressure. And the Melbourne Demons, as well as they're going, if you bring pressure on AFL players, you are not immune to it. So I think that's how you beat Melbourne, is bringing a four-quarter effort of pressure, and you got to hurt them the other way as well. North Melbourne missed some opportunities when they had the run of it. Now, if you get in front of a side like Melbourne, who knows? Maybe the pressure does come on them. But that's 17 in a row from Melbourne.
Can they break the all-time record?
What is the all-time record, do you know?
Good question.
Okay, very good. Dan
it's 20 plus, I think. We'll get down onto that. But they are a team, again, they will be winning every match. What's so good for Melbourne the last year and a half? Their health of their list.
Yeah. I mean, West Coast would be loving to take a nice little leaf out of Melbourne's book with what they've been able to get on the part.
Yeah, but even still, I just think, Melbourne, it's full credit to them, because after 2020, you question whether they were going to be able to get back and become a top 8 side, let alone win the flag.
Well, 18, they make a prelim. They're disappointing there. 19 is poor. And you think, are they going to rebuild the list here? But clearly, they've got a lot right going on there. No worries. Dan, hello.
Hello, boys. The record, 23 successive victories, was by the 1952-53 Geelong team.
Cats, yes.
You would have been watching that then, Skate, wouldn't you?
Yeah, would have had my Birkenstocks on, just watching as a kid in the corner. No, just before my time, Scully, but was that 23? So
6 to go. They'll do that.
They'll do it in their ear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. How was that game? Watching 23 in a row, it was quite good. Adelaide defeated St Kilda, 21 points. Defeated by St Kilda. So St Kilda win this game by a little over 3 goals. They should have lost this one. Now,
why do you say that?
St Kilda are a challenger this year, I think, but they're going to battle inconsistency given they haven't seen success at that club for a long time. So the belief factor in that club is probably at a low level. Max King kicked 6 goals, which is a focal point for them, but they were incredibly efficient in front of goal.
Well, compared to 9-15 by Adelaide.
Adelaide were poor, and that's what I mean by they should have lost this one. Adelaide had the opportunity to kick 3 or 4 goals in a row. They started the game well. The third quarter, they were on top by a long way, and they just couldn't hit the scoreboard. It makes a difference when you're playing, whether you're kicking goals or not. Now, that's an obvious statement, but they don't kick the goals when they have to. St Kilda takes it the other end, 1 entry, 1 goal, and it's a 12-point turnaround. That happens 3 or 4 times in the game. You can't win it, Skate.
No.
And so it's disappointing from Adelaide, but St Kilda weren't convincing for mine.
No, well, you said they're a contender. I'm not sure St Kilda are.
Really?
I haven't. Look, they've played some really good footy this year, but, I mean, just going back to the Max King factor, isn't it nice to see in the AFL now, Lynch, we saw him at Optus Stadium get hold of the Eagles and kick a bag and follow it up the next week, and Charlie Curnow we've spoken about, some of these key forwards, which we want to see in the game. I know you're a defender and you like to blunt these weapons, but as spectators, as supporters, the fans want to see the big boys dominate.
I can appreciate that. And Max King kicking 6, I mean, he's right up in the conversation with Charlie Curnow as the best forwards in the game at the moment. He's a weapon. He's a young weapon, though. That's what's really scary about some of these young kids. Like Mackay's in that conversation, Charlie Curnow, Max King, they're all over 200 centimetres. It's ridiculous. Massive. I'm so glad I'm sitting here with you right now, Skeet, because I wouldn't want to be playing on these blokes week in, week out.
Yeah, and we've talked a bit about at the moment, there's a bit of one-on-one defending. Good luck. It's a nervous time for a defender, and that's what makes the likes of Jacob Wiedering and Callum Wilk at the weekend stand out in my mind.
Yeah, they're going well. Richmond v Essendon. Richmond beat Essendon by 32 points. Now, there's been a lot of hype about Essendon and their ability to... Well, I mean, the Dylan Shield incident with Luke Parker last week about potentially ducking his head and maybe not showing enough heart. Essendon showed heart in this game. They came out... I will say they potentially showed too much heart. They came very physical at Richmond, sometimes with a good team though, and Richmond is a good team. They're playing well. They had a big kill against West Coast and they've taken that momentum through. They can weather that storm. They can handle the fight. They can handle the wrestles, but it's when you got to win that footy and distribute it to your teammates nicely. Richmond were able to weather what Essendon put at them, but Essendon were better. They just didn't win.
No. What we do need to point out is how good the Indigenous players were in the Dreamtime game.
This is Dreamtime at the G, right?
At the G, Daniel Rioli out of defence. That's been an inspired move to push him back.
Hasn't it? He's been great back there.
Rebounds beautifully. My favourite player, watching him at Optus Stadium, is Shea Bolton. I've said to you time and time, every time he gets the footy, I just love him. He just does so many amazing things with the footy in hand. He just looks like he's in a different space to most players on the ground.
You look at, I think Tuke Miller's a bit like that at Gold Coast, but Clayton Oliver, Petrarca, they look like I'm not talking similar players. I'm just talking, they look like they're just moving at a different pace to everyone else. Shea Bolton literally looks 5 kilometres quicker than anyone else on the field. When we saw him play West Coast, he was running past multiple players. It's just great to watch, isn't he?
And he can do it in the air. He can do it at ground level. And, gee, he's the most exciting player at Richmond in my mind. And great to see the likes of Maurice Rioli Jr. And just a great celebration for Indigenous footy at the G.
I've got a quirky one here for you. This is this game here, the first time in AFL history that was the score. 80-48. It was the first score of that nature in any game in the history of the game.
I'm tipping.
Do not challenge me.
I'm challenging that you found that fact. I reckon Dan might have done the hard yards here, and you're taking the credit.
Dan, is that correct, or what's going on over there?
Yep, first time in AFL history. I think it was the 6,734th unique score in the history of the game.
I think Dan needs to get a life outside of this job that he's doing in this beautiful studio of yours, Scully.
All right, we're going to keep moving. Last game of the weekend after a Fremantle West Coast wrap. This is the 9th game of the weekend. Hawthorn defeat Brisbane. I think the biggest upset. They win by 5 points. The biggest upset of the weekend, given Brisbane's premiership chances this year.
Not just that. What about the score that was kicked in Launceston yesterday? Extraordinary. 18-9 to 17-10. And even more extraordinary.
I wonder who got to 12 goals first.
Oh, don't start on that. Where's Carl when you don't need him? 63 free kicks, Goey.
Was there?
That's about one every 2 minutes.
I think I've got that 63. That was the 4th most ever in the AFL. 4th most ever free kicks. But we can't talk about the free kicks, can we? I mean, Hawthorn have been playing a brand of footy under Sam Mitchell that, look, it's gone a little under the radar. They've clearly changed as a team. They haven't changed too many people at their club. So the ability for Sam Mitchell to come in and teach these young fellas how to play a really exciting brand of footy. They're taking it through the corridor. They score quickly. They score heavily. And you have matchups like that, 117 to 112. It's great to watch.
Absolutely. Tom Mitchell, Lockie Neal, that battle. And what we're seeing is James Sicily having signed a long-term deal. I'm not a huge fan of the 5 years, to be honest with you.
Especially for key defenders.
No, I agree.
I'll put the flag up for the key defenders. But
I just think 5 years in any... I mean, let's say an absolute superstar. But that being said, this is one succession plan that has the makings of being a real success for Hawthorn. And Sam Mitchell, they're going to have their moments. They're going to have their downs. But I think if you're a Hawthorn sympathiser, you'd be really comfortable with where they're heading.
Yep, I agree. Very good. There you go. Hawthorn beat Brisbane. It was in Launceston, so it wasn't a Brisbane home game. I don't think that matters.
Well, no, but I think it's significant, though, from a Brisbane perspective, because they will get a bit of a wake. Speaking of reality checks at the Dockers, same for Brisbane, who are just cruising.
Do they play Brisbane? Is it Freo Brisbane this week or Freo Melbourne?
Freo Melbourne, then Fremantle Brisbane back here in Perth on a Sunday afternoon, I think.
Oh, there you go. There's the 9 games of the weekend wrapped up here on the Shelter FootyCast. Rightio. Look. If anyone listening wants to send in a nice play on words, Skeet and Scully here, we'd be very appreciative of a bit of help here because, look, I mean, I know we're both a couple of good-looking blokes here.
Yes.
But some of the play on words probably not our biggest strength. So we've gone with the Shelter XPA X-factor, or, that guy that stood out for the weekend.
Really captured your attention.
I think, this is my point of view, Charlie Curnow's got to be the guy. He's leading the Coleman. He's missed 2 years of footy. He kicked 6 goals, playing on 2 players. Sydney have had a good back line for 10 years. They play the same way. They keep you in front. They put the bumper bars out. You can't get back past them. And they were at times double teaming him because they didn't have another key focal point. To kick 6 goals, for them to win against a good side, Friday night footy, Carlton go to 8-2. Charlie Curnow is my Shelter XPA X-factor. Do you agree, disagree?
No, good shout.
Someone to add?
No, very good shout. And Friday night, he did it on the big stage. The only concern moving forward with Charlie, and we love him, is can he keep himself on the park? That has been the issue, as you say, over the years.
His rig
it's Adonis-like, isn't it? It's just got the biceps and everything working for him, Will, which you and I probably...
I mean, these young blokes, they're coming through.
They're cut.
He's like 198, ripped, tanned.
Looking the girls love him.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like Skeet and Scully, really. Ripped, tan,
good head for radios.
Very good. That is your Shelter XPA X-factor. If you can do better than that, I mean, let us know. Shelter FootyCast on Instagram. You can follow the links in bio. Get in touch with us. Give us something better than that. I mean, we can do better.
It's not bad, but it's early doors. We can get some suggestions we'll take on board, and we'll certainly give you the love that you require in return.
It's been a rapid fire 35 minutes, but we're almost to the end, Skeet. It's been fun. I mean,
It's
first
fun.
hit at it.
We're talking footy. It's what we do 7 days a week, just bumble and fumble our way through what's been an amazing weekend of action across the country.
And life. I will say, I'm not going to pretend. We are recording this in the morning on a Monday morning. So if you're wondering why we're not having a beer while we're doing this, look, we could, but I mean, it'd be a good start to the week, probably.
Yeah, but it'll be a long week if we have one now, I have to be honest. I'm going to do a full day of work, and I'm not sure what you're up to today.
Yeah, I'm working, absolutely. I'm working down at the clothes shop to find myself some new clothes. Now, to finish off, we really want to make this Shelter FootyCast, given that Shelter is brewed in Busso, down there by the Busso.
Great
jetty.
community.
It's a regional town, Busselton. They've got a new airport. You can fly there from anywhere, but we want to hear about regional football stories. So we're getting some stuff together, but at the moment, Shelter FootyCast on Instagram is a way to get them to us. I want to hear about
characters.
I want to hear about characters. I want to hear about stories from the weekend.
Moments that you go, hang on a sec, this has to go broader than just in the Busselton area.
It could be, okay, so Charlie Curnow kicked 6 on the weekend. That's great. I'm sure there's a Macca or a Smitty or a Jono that kicked 20 goals on the weekend.
Or someone playing their 500th game, or a volunteer that's just been outstanding.
500, there would be. Or a father-son playing.
Exactly.
In the same team.
A mother-daughter.
Yes. I like that.
Anything. Something that just takes your fancy, that you think's outside the realm. We would love to hear from you.
That'll be the regional footy roundup every week at this time of the show. We'll do that. Clearly, first episode, we haven't had any contenders. Did you play regional footy? Did you play much footy?
I played footy till year 10. I did my ACL, so I had a knee reconstruction at 15.
Did you?
Yeah, so a very ordinary career was cut tragically short by a knee reconstruction.
There you go. I went down. Regional footy story, mate. Who do you play for?
Coolbinia Bombers.
Oh.
Not regional, but very good club.
What cut your career short, mate?
Just a decision to pursue other things.
So you think you could have made it?
I was told that by several people, yeah.
I talk about a fig jam.
There you go. A bit of fig jam. That'd be nice across the regional footy roundup. So if you've got a story, send it in. Shelter FootyCast. That's about done and dusted for us, Skeet. It's been fun.
Had a lot of fun. Shelter's here. You're not going far. And we're going to be back, on Thursday for another chat about footy.
We're going to be back Thursday for the preview coming up for round 11. You can find us on YouTube. So if you're listening along, you can watch it. Skeet's, as we've heard, dressed very nicely for the cameras. I'm not, if you want to see that.
Alternatively, if you're a social media person, there's the man that's got all the tricks of the trade. I'm a little bit more old school. So I'll be educated through the course of this program and the podcast as to how and why social media is a success.
Do you have Instagram? Do you have it?
I have Instagram. I have an account manager.
You got a couple of daughters.
My daughter does that.
Yes, I thought they might. Very good. Skeet and Scully, that's it. 40-minute hit. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Join us back here on Thursday. Shelter FootyCast on socials, YouTube, BackChat, links in bio. Done and dusted.
Well played.